It's quite a drive, isn't it? Hi everyone, welcome to Olveston. Before I talk about this room in particular, I'll give you a bit of information about the history of the house and of the family. So Olveston was built between 1904 and 1906 by the Theoman family. You can see Marie Theoman here, her two children, Edward and Dorothy, and their father David above the door there. So they were of Jewish German descent. Marie was born in Melbourne, Australia. David born in Bristol, England, both to Jewish German parents. They met in Australia in the 1870s, married in 1879 and came out to New Zealand not long after. And they lived on the same bit of land in a smaller house for the intervening decades before demolishing the old house and building Olveston as their kind of dream home, really. So, not the oldest house in the world, obviously, but the real point of difference is that all the contents are original. So this is what the family had and how they had it. So all original books. This room in particular is the library breakfast room. So David also did a lot of his business affairs in here. You'll notice some unusual items, bits of sort of interest as the little strips of leather along the bookshelves to stop dust getting in. It was quite a clever, quite a clever idea. Fireplace as well. You'll notice a few of those throughout. There's a total of 28 in the house, which is quite a few. So most of them share the same chimney, so it's sort of otherwise you'd end up with chimneys all over the place. But they did also have central heating as well, which was there's a radiator behind the cabinet there under the window, so certainly keeping warm. In terms of the books, it's mostly sort of contemporary fiction from the turn of the 19th to 20th century. Mostly, yeah, mostly English. So it would have been. It's not particularly sort of high. It's what they enjoyed reading. It's not sort of
You've got one.
Fancy sort of books. You'll notice as well as we go throughout these little buttons by the sides of the fireplaces. So that's for calling the servants. So the family had 7 full-time servants, 4 female, 3 male. The 4 female servants lived on the very top floor, which is apartments today, so people still live up there. It's a bit nicer than it would have been back in the... actually the best views from up there as well. But wallpaper in this room as well is it's an American import from New York. You notice quite a lot of the family areas are quite dark because of the wood and the wallpaper. We do keep the lighting a little bit lower just to stop from damaging the fabrics and timber, etc. But still quite a nice house, and you'll see that as we continue.
But when you say upstairs there's apartments,
yes,
for people that work here, or been sold off, or
yeah. So the house, I'll talk a bit about how the house ended up as a sort of museum. Basically, it was donated to the city. So the people living in the top are basically they're mostly artists actually, because it's got very good lighting, but they're essentially just tenants, and they perform a security function for the house basically. Having someone in is always good. So this is the dining room, as it would be for a social evening. Obviously the family, being only 4 members, wouldn't fill out this huge table. So there's a few interesting items on the table as well. The Venetian glassware, they're supposed to be dolphins. These sort of look a bit more like fish to me, but sort of stylised dolphins. The little shades over the candles are actually designed to stay in place as the candles will be burning, so they've got a fireproof lining and a metal bracket. The house has always had electricity, even from 1906, so they would have only been for sort of atmosphere.
What they did like dolphins.
Yeah, they're quite. Some people quite like them. They're quite. I think they're quite unusual, but that's certainly interesting. So there's little glasses for all your different types of alcohol there. The little silver pieces would be for salt, and then salt, pepper, and mustard. I think is the three ingredients. There's a French lantern clock in the far corner, far side of the room as well. It's the oldest clock in the house. It's about 1750.
Wow.
Still going. So it's what they call an 8-day clock. So you only have to wind it once a week, which is quite unusual for a clock of that period. You may notice as well the picture rail. So we've got paintings sort of hanging from strings. So that was the family's choice. They collected just under 250 paintings and artworks throughout their life, so they wanted to be able to move them without having to sort of hammer into the imported wallpaper and that sort of thing. A lot of it is sort of European. There's some New Zealand artists, Francis Hodgkins and Goldie and that sort of thing.
It's a silly question, but I mean, with these place names,
yes.
Were they from some historical record? I see you've got Truby King there.
Yeah, so this is a recreation of a dinner which was held here in about 1911, 1914, somewhere just prior to the war, I think. So it was a meeting, the first meeting of the Plunket Society. So that's why Truby King is involved. So that's where people sat as well. Right. So the Theamans were quite high up in the social sort of structure of Dunedin, being sort of the wealthiest.
So what names are on the other side? Can't see.
That's a good question. I'm not sure, not from memory, I'm not sure who exactly is there. I know that they are all there, but someone would be able to tell you what they all are. That was door here, I think.
So you tell us later about their travels, because
yes.
These look as though they're...
Yeah, so the family did travel quite a bit by steamship, as you have guessed. So they went to Europe, Japan, China and that sort of thing.
We'll let you stay your itinerary.
So this is the Great Hall, which you can probably guess from the size of it. So this is where guests would have to come through to get to the dining room. Also social events, sort of balls and dances and that sort of thing would be held. Obviously the furniture removed at those times. Musicians placed above. Or later on they had the radio gramophone, which is under the stairs there. You may notice the little chaperone's window as well, so you could, it's just an internal window, you can basically head upstairs and sort of still hear the music and the goings on without having to sort of be in the thick of it, so to speak. The wallpaper here is actually a hessian, a screen printed hessian, almost like a burlap kind of material, stretched tight over the walls, which is an unusual, even for the time, quite an unusual method of doing things. Yeah, so we've had to unfortunately put sort of plastic covering because people love to feel that, and it starts to wear out quite quickly when people are handling it like that. All of the timber throughout the family areas is English oak, so it's all obviously imported, but it was actually carved as well when you were disassembled, brought out. That goes for all of the staircase and everything. It's all sort of joints and dowels and no nails or anything in that. So quite impressive that it managed to stay fitting in the right dimensions. The stained glass is English as well, London manufacturer. You can see the Welsh dragon and the Irish harp with Scottish and English lions. So David obviously being born in Britain, showing a bit of patriotism. The New Zealand part of the British Empire at the time as well, so always a good idea. So it's a waka huia, so it was made by a Māori employee of Mr. Theaman's. Was thought to be a sort of a kind of a not an authentic piece for quite a while, but we've actually found out that the man who did it was quite a noted Māori carver. It's got a hui feather in the middle of it as well, so they went extinct the same year the house was completed, so you don't see many of those around anymore. It would have been, originally would have had a bit of an orange tint to the end of it, but it's sort of gone white over time. Yeah, it's quite cool, isn't it? Japanese garden seats as well, either.
It's a feather.
So I'm not sure, they're not very comfortable to me, but
So if your back's playing up, you wouldn't mind.
if you're a smaller person, it might work quite well. So this is the vestibule, it's the original front door to the house. So it seems a bit strange to have all this weaponry here in the foyer area of the property, but it's designed to sort of mimic an English castle or manor house. You can sort of see the faux brickwork kind of giving that vibe as well. It's mostly Japanese weaponry in here, the samurai swords along.
Is that ivory?
Yeah, the bottom one's ivory, so obviously before that was outlawed.
Yeah.
So it's more of a ceremonial piece, that one, rather than a practical weapons. The spears along the wall are Japanese as well. These round items, which look a bit like shields, are actually helmets.
Oh.
So sort of conical. If you imagine that conical Asian style of headwear, they're kind of armoured, decorative versions of that. Quite good for sort of deflecting a blow to the head or something, you can imagine. North African muskets as well, the big guns along there. The family wouldn't have used those, again, purely decorative. They weren't really interested in hunting or anything. That wasn't really that popular at the time in New Zealand.
A little beer.
Yeah, so it's Swiss.
So cute.
It's probably my favourite statue actually in the house. It's got quite a nice expression. It's a Swiss oak beer. Yeah, so it looks cast, but it's actually carved. The eyes are glass, but apart from that, it's all.
That's it. We've got 2 visitors to join.
Oh, okay. Hi, welcome. Come on in. So I was just explaining, this is the vestibule, this is the front door, the original front door to the house.
Really? Wow.
Which is a bit odd with the weaponry, but they're sort of trying to give an English castle kind of vibe to things. Mostly Japanese samurai swords, that sort of thing.
Sure, yes.
Ivory at the bottom.
Yes, there is.
So the family wouldn't have keys to the front door, they would simply knock and a servant would come
Open the door.
which is quite a luxury. You don't have to worry about forgetting your keys. A little bathroom to the side as well. Sort of enjoy that. There's a statue of David and Goliath as well from the biblical story.
Yes, yes.
Obviously Goliath's sort of seen better days at the bottom. So that's a 19th century Italian copy of a Renaissance original. So it's sort of a tourist piece they picked up while visiting Europe.
Right. So it's a weapons, aren't they?
Yeah, flintlock muskets, North African.
Right.
Quite nasty looking. Family wouldn't have used those, they'd just been purely decorative. So we'll get through to the drawing room now.
Oh, he's not going to be on there, He's still coming on camera.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Thought we might have forgot someone there. So this is as I said, the drawing room. It's another social space for the family. It's where they have sort of high tea and receptions during the daytime. also sort of function like a lounge room in the evening for them as well. It's got the only decorated ceiling in the house, which is quite unusual for a home of the period. You often see sort of plaster decoration in every single room, but we think they were trying to emphasise it by having it in just in this one space.
So when was the house built?
1904 to 1906. So
not before that, right?
no, so it's quite a sort of Edwardian period rather than Victorian.
Yes.
So not the oldest house, but
No,
originality of continents is the
very much so.
yeah. So this is all the family's furniture and all their knick-knacks, I suppose you'd call it,
Yes.
ornaments and that sort of thing. You'll notice the Steinway piano in the far end of the room. It's a 1906 vintage.
Does anybody play it? No.
What's that, sorry?
Does anybody play it?
Yes, we do. Sometimes people play it if you...
No, I don't do.
No. So David Thiemann made most of his fortune through a piano import company, importing pianos like that. The largest sort of music company in the country for over 3 decades. The Dresden Piano Company later became the Bristol. During World War I, it wasn't great to have a German name company, especially given the family were German by ancestry as well.
Yes, I was going to ask you something on up to it. Is it their German family, did you say?
Yes, so they're both. David and Marie were both born in, David was born in Bristol, England, his wife in Australia, but their parents were both Jewish German immigrants, so they were very much sort of first generation in both their countries. Of course, it wasn't German back then, it would have been Prussia, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll say they were German. More stained glass in this room as well. Famous painters on this window here, and then William Shakespeare and Thomas Wordsworth, the famous poets, playwrights down the far end. A little bit of an unusual choice, but they were quite. The family were quite interested in in art and kind of provided a lot of funding to the local art gallery and that sort of thing. So kind of a passion of theirs.
Yes.
I see the light there, it's cute.
And what's that?
Yeah,
Sitting down.
yeah. If you see Polly on the chairs, it means they're original and
Please don't sit.
yeah, please don't sit. They're a little bit fragile.
Yes, that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I grew up in a house that was built in 1901.
Okay.
Nothing like this.
Well, there's quite a lot of old houses still standing in New Zealand. That's sort of
Nice ceilings.
yeah, hard to heat, unfortunately, if you don't have a fire going in every room.
So what do you do in the winter? Do you close it or?
No, we keep it going. So there's actually central heating as well, which is something they installed themselves.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so originally it was a coal-fired boiler, but it's all computer controlled
Yes.
now, so we can monitor the
It's a
temperature.
water system.
Yeah, hot water system. So I don't know if you can see it in this room, but you may have seen in some other rooms the radiators. Yeah, so that would have been considered quite modern at the time.
Sure.
You can see there's a marble bust of Marie Thiemann as well.
What's her name? Thiemann.
Yeah, Thiemann. Yeah, Theomin. It's not a very common name.
No.
So that was given to her by David on their 25th wedding anniversary as a wedding gift, anniversary gift. So
I never thought of that.
No, we hadn't thought of that either, had we?
no, it's not something people would do in this sort of modern age, is it? So we'll get out this door. There's the reason behind the 2 doors is just for one for the servants, one for the family. So they like to keep that sort of thing separate.
It's amazing bits of furniture, aren't
Yeah, they're quite incredible. We'll get up the stairs
they? Oh, amazing. Oh, that's a good step width though, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's coming, she's putting my camera in her bag.
That's all right.
Trying to do two things at once, I can't do it.
There's a lot to see, isn't there?
28 fireplaces.
Is it? But not 28 chimneys. Some of them shared.
Yeah, they're all, most of them are double deck. So this is the daughter Dorothy's sitting room. Her bedrooms next door. She decided to have the two separate rooms rather than one sort of big bedroom. Originally you'd be able to sort of just about see the sea out the window there, but the trees are beautiful as well, so we don't complain too much about that. So Dorothy was the youngest family member. She outlived the rest of her family by a number of decades as well. You can see a photograph of the family here. So Dorothy's in the white. So her mother died, in the bottom left there.
Sure, one brother, did she?
Yeah, so her mother died in 1926, her brother in 28, and then her father in 1933.
Oh, that's true.
So that would have been very difficult for her, all within the space of a few years. She didn't pass away until 1966, so she was in the house.
By herself.
Yeah, she did have friends that would come and stay with her for considerable periods, and then she had a widower in her family who was a sort of acquaintance of hers who came and spent a number of years with her to help maintain the house, and all the servants were gone by this point as well. She was kind of moving with the times and cooked her own food and that sort of thing. Drove herself around in her own car and that sort of.
Well, she'd be getting on 66, wouldn't she?
She was so she was in her 70s when she died, so not that old really, but for the time it's back in those days.
Nice of him to say so. Makes me feel as I'm out next week.
No. So she never married, for reasons which we're not really too clear on. We think possibly the Jewish faith, couldn't find a husband of the same
Oh,
same
so she
faith.
had that Jewish.
Yeah, so they were still practicing throughout their life as well. There's not a huge amount of indication in the house about that, but they remained part of the. Yeah, so there's still a synagogue in Dunedin. It was a bigger community back in the day, I think. About 400 or so out of a much smaller city. So, but no, she couldn't find anyone, unfortunately. She decided to donate the house to the city council rather than see and the possessions as well, obviously, rather than see it sort of dispersed. They did try and do that anyway and sell off the land, but luckily she'd been quite clever with her legal stipulations, as you would expect of a businessman's daughter. So they couldn't quite manage to do that.
Because we were told, weren't we, that they offered it and
They declined it at first.
Yeah, they were. Well, by the 1960s, the roof was in need of quite a lot of work, and because of the size and complexity of the house's design, it was quite a bit of. So they were a bit wary about that.
We were told years ago that nobody had actually come to the house.
Yeah.
They made the decision to decline it without even seeing it.
Yeah.
And it's when they walked in and saw all of this, all the furniture.
They didn't realise what they were turning down. They just thought it was an old.
Well, they were being cautious, and we wish our council sometimes were more cautious, so a happy outcome.
They spent a lot of money painting polka dots on the main street a while ago, so which wasn't a very popular move with a lot of people. But yeah, I don't know. They could learn a bit maybe from the old council. Yeah, have a look at the family. So that was taken not long after they moved in.
Really?
Yeah.
There wasn't as much of an emphasis on bedrooms in those days. A little bit more modest.
Old-fashioned
just a replica of the original sort of wallpaper?
Yeah, so unfortunately the wallpaper was found we found pieces of the original under layers of replacement wallpaper, and then this is a recreation of that. It's one of the few sort of wall coverings that's had to be reproduced really. The rest of it had lasted quite well. There's native Kauri furniture in this room as well, unfortunately painted white, which you wouldn't really do to Kauri these days, but back in 1906 they thought it was just a colonial timber.
So she lived in that period of the Holocaust and Second World War.
Yeah.
She would be glad that she was here.
Yeah, I think they were. I mean, they didn't face a lot of anti-Semitism in New Zealand. I think
No.
the German connection was much more awkward for them.
I like the gold beam, it's like a brassy look.
Yeah, it's quite nice, isn't it? Looks quite sturdy.
I wonder what it feels like.
Holocaust. And all that happened. So
She must have been fearful to watch that from far.
absolutely.
It's interesting that they should have all the hangers
Yeah.
on the ceiling there, isn't
Yeah,
it?
the picture rail. Yeah, so they wanted to be able to move things basically without having to sort of hammer a new hole in each
They
time.
always used to have them down about
Yeah.
a couple of feet down.
Yeah, it's quite unusual to have one that high. Yeah,
Yeah.
normally they're sort of
Yeah.
a little bit lower than that. Yeah, so you may notice the tiles tend to match the carpet. And then
Is this original carpet then?
no, so this is, unfortunately, this is a recreation. We do have the originals, but we're just not allowed to walk all over them.
No.
Because they're very old and quite fragile.
Exactly.
But these are exact copies of the original ones, so they've got the same colour and pattern.
Sure.
And everything.
Yeah. Full on that go it is in the lavatories. I know, because we've lived in a house older than this.
Yeah.
World War One.
Oh,
So from 1917, we tried to sign up earlier, but his father stopped him because he was the only son. A bit risky. He did survive the war. He served for it in the trenches in France for about 6 months before getting bronchitis. He met an Australian nurse while recovering. They were later married in 1919. They lived in a small house not far from here. Although no children from that marriage either. Yeah. So he was quite ill. He never quite got over his wartime sickness. As I said, he died in 1928, so only...
Yes, that would be why he had no children.
Yeah, didn't last very long.
Really hard on the men. You know, the way the woman.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was...
Yeah.
It's a difficult time to be alive, really. I think
It was,
we had
yes.
World War One and then the pandemic, which we're sort of experiencing again, aren't we? But not really in New Zealand that much, thankfully. So an unusual piece in this room is the little electric heater in front of the fireplace there. So that's a 1920s introduction. It's got four big light bulbs in front which provide a bit of heat and illumination. Does still work apparently, but...
Is that like a letter box or something, like to put your letters and stuff in?
yeah, I think I'm not sure what it is actually. It looks like a...
What sort of wood is it?
Personal grooming?
Yeah, it's got a brush next to it, I think.
Is this Kauri? What do you think?
Yeah, I believe so. I know this furniture was made locally, so it's one of the few sets that was...
I don't know that it is. It's more like really.
Yeah, it might be. Looks a bit like oak to me. Yeah.
Okay.
It's got that cortisone sort of pattern on the...
The house that we lived in for 10 years was Kauri. It was very plain.
Yeah, I think it might be
You know
oak.
that? I think it's
I'm
oak.
not that great with my woods, to be honest.
Well, I mean, the rain was more oak.
Yeah.
Come in.
Yeah, so his wife, Edward's wife, was offered the house when his sister passed away, but she declined. She wanted to stay in their marital home. So she kept living there until she passed away in the late 1980s. So she outlived him by a very, very long time, which is a trend of this family. The women outliving the men by a long margin.
Is that her photo there?
No, so these are the maternal grandparents, the Michaelises. So that's Marie's parents. Yeah, so they were, or Morris. Moritz was a successful Melbourne-based businessman. So mostly leather goods and coaches and that sort of thing. So when David married into that family, it gave him a bit of a career boost. not that it was a marriage of sort of convenience. It was a genuine match, but certainly a silver lining. So that's Prince Edward there. Edward the sixth or seventh, I can't remember. The one that abdicated, ran off with Wallace Simpson and that.
Yes.
Not a very popular word for there. So that's just downstairs. We'll head there in a moment. Bathrooms along here. Toilet. Flushing toilet. So that would be considered quite modern. Yeah, a little laundry to the side.
Wow.
Quite beautiful, isn't it?
Beautiful. Well done. And shutters on the window. Shower, look at that.
Yeah, so they had the shower head there, which is very unusual for
Most of that would have landed in the
It'd be quite low pressure, so it would sort of dribble, sort of spray outwards much more than the diameter of the...
Oh my goodness, sorry, you would blow that.
How many bedrooms? Just the three, so there's the two for the children and then the master bedroom. There is the four bedrooms for the servants upstairs here, so very much made for the family. Not sure what they would have done if the son had gone on to have even children. They might have had to sort of go off to the servants' quarters. Yeah, so that just calls down to the kitchen. So it's not a full working telephone, just an entertaining system basically.
What are these photos in here of?
That's a good question actually. I'm not sure. I'll have to check that at the end. We do have a list of all the items in the house. So that's just a dressing room. Jordan back to master.
Yes. Oh my goodness, what a piece of furniture there. Beautiful.
In those days, in sort of upper class English families, you might have even separate bedrooms for husband and wife. So just on the two single beds. You can see photographs of Marie and David when they're a little bit older.
safe.
Yeah, so that's the jewellery safe. So in reception there's a little cabinet with the items they would keep in there. There's a little carriage clock and pocket watch and brooches and that sort of thing. Originally it was intended that the reception area, which is a gift shop nowadays, but was a guest bedroom originally, would have been, they could have swapped the guest and master around if they didn't want to move up the stairs every night. So there's a place for the safe down there and that sort of thing as well. But so there is another bedroom on top of there. Quite a lot of Japanese influence in this room and the next room especially. So Japanese silks, early 20th century.
There's a pie.
Mm.
Should be under the bed, shouldn't it? But we wouldn't be able to see it if it was there.
No. Yeah, so it's a bit strange they kept using the bed pans even though they had the toilet right there, but
Maybe they were just too tired to go to the floor in the
Yeah.
middle of the night.
they're probably quite accustomed to using them.
Big mirror, isn't
Look
it?
at the-
Beauty.
Yeah, 7
Brush
foot
set.
winged mirror. You can sort of see everything in it, which is not always that nice. But
Look at the brush set.
Oh, but they weigh wooden trillions and all.
yes, they would have looked nice, wouldn't they?
They
They
look
had
like
finery.
we are today. Look at her in a finery there. Lovely.
So he was quite a jolly man by all accounts.
They smile there too.
It's very nice.
So it's quite-
You can see the Jewishness.
Yeah, no,
face.
you can. It does come across, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
it does,
yeah.
That's a big piece of furniture there, isn't it?
Yeah, big dresser. Huge. You fit.
You won't have that thing.
No, you get a little cupboard or something.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Femininity and
Mm-hmm.
the seat covers.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, that one was very, very thick through there, of course it's got the safe and chimneys behind it.
Concealing all of that stuff, isn't it?
Concealed, that's right, concealed.
The old fashioned mahjong.
So as you've guessed, this is the billiards room. So referred to as a full size or an Olympic size table.
Really?
Yeah, so 12 foot, roughly 12 foot 6 by 6 foot 2, I think, or 6 foot 3, so about 2 by 4 metres. Weighs somewhere between 1.5 to 2 tonnes.
Not
Mostly.
shiftable.
No.
I
So
mean, would they built the house round it? How would they brought it
it
up?
would have been assembled in the room. So it's a London made table, so it would have been brought out in pieces and then assembled. The slate top, you would sort of polish that, or polish the seams together. That's a diagram of the mechanism for raising and lowering the lights and opening the windows at either end. So there's a pulley system there which you can operate that.
Oh, raising that.
Yeah, so there's so you see the windows at either end, they sort of cantilever open like a trap door almost to allow smoke, cigar smoke and pipe smoke to come out. Something to show off. I think it's quite. Not sure if it still works, but yeah. So that's a matching scoreboard with the table. So it's made by the same London company.
Here's the cues. Is cues it is?
Yeah, cues. Yeah. So a lot of Japanese, Chinese artifacts in this room. Oh, that's a humidifier for the oak, so
Oh, that's good.
it stops it drying out. So you may have
What's
noticed
this table here, can I ask?
so it's a card table. They've got it set up for mahjong at the moment.
Oh, mahjong.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
then
probably the men play
yes.
pool, the women play mahjong. I think would be the way that.
And what have we got here, can I ask?
Yeah, so that's a painting rack. So essentially for storing paintings when they're not up on the wall, you can sort of expand it out so you can
Yes.
slot things in there.
Yes. Yes.
Notice the sofa there raised up on a little platform. That's to allow you to look at the game and still sit down.
Yes.
It was quite a good idea.
Ah, that's amazing.
The tapestry in the far end is a silk Spanish tapestry. The reason it's lost all its colour is because one of the servants washed it during the family's time here, which is quite not a great idea. You can sort of see a bit of red on this one man's coat in the middle, but that's about it, unfortunately. The family kept it hanging there, so we've got it in the same position.
We're not sure if this is...
So this is a Chinese seat and then Japanese, sort of late 19th century Japanese table there. Not really sure about that. We know this item's Japanese. It's generally described as a luggage, piece of luggage item, sort of strapped to a back of a horse or something. But we don't really know what it was for. It's a bit of a mystery. It was a Japanese team of curators and antiques experts that came and looked at the house in the 1990s, and they weren't sure really that safe. There's Japanese ivory in here as well. Obviously, again, before the cut-off date in 1948. Yeah, so this is the Persian room, as the family called it. So you would sort of got a Middle Eastern Arabian Nights kind of.
My mum's got my great-grandparents' ivory in her house.
Oh, okay.
So what do they do? Just smoke and eat?
Yeah, and afternoon tea as well if there was a small number of guests. You can see out onto the great hall through the window. Yeah. Throw things down. The Star of David chandelier there as well.
Is that here?
Yeah. So it's one of the few sort of indicators that the family were Jewish.
Oh, the 5 points. Cool.
Yeah.
See that, Alan? The Star of David? Star of David and the...
Lots of cartoons on the walls.
Yeah, I was looking at something.
Yes. There are some cartoons that are quite sweet. And do you know where this brass container here, anything about that?
Not particularly, no. It's believed to be Chinese, but
No,
apart from
Chinese.
that-
I've seen a few interesting Chinese in Japan.
Yeah, they're quite beautiful, aren't they?
Mm.
Seats again there, just Chinese.
And these are Chinese.
Yeah, the little figures along there.
And then, we've got ships up here. Was this the ship they came on? I wonder.
No, I'm not sure specifically what they are, but he was David was shipwrecked in New Zealand at one point off Taranaki, so he was quite interested in. He was a sort of member of the shipwreck survivors sort of charity and that, so it's sort of linking back to that. So we lost quite a lot of money in that shipwreck. A lot of it went down, but
Went down with the ship.
yeah, unfortunately.
That's a nice ship there.
Yeah, beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful vase. Probably my favourite room, I think, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I love the table. Get a big, replace the tapestry with a big TV. We'll be sorted. So we'll head back downstairs again. We'll go down the different staircase.
Right. The size of that door. Wow.
Yeah. I locked you in again.
That's all right. I was trying to get a photo of that blue table.
Sort of a guest room.
So we're in the middle up here, the beginning of it. How many layers is it?
So we see the middle 2 floors, which is the family areas, and then there's the top floor for the servants in the basement, which we don't see. It's a bit spooky down there, to be honest.
Have you been to the basement?
Yeah, it's got the archives and got some.
I wish you could go down there.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to, thank you.
Go see the archives.
I don't think because
So the people that are living upstairs, do they have to come through the whole house, or is there another entrance?
They come in this little door down here, mostly here, and then they sort of head on up.
Yeah.
so we go on here.
Yeah, just head along to the kitchen there. We're on the servant side of things now, so it's a lot more. No, next door.
Preparation.
Sorry, didn't mean to lose you there.
That's all right. I'll just follow the footsteps.
So food would start here in the kitchen and then move through to the scullery and end up in the butler's pantry, where it would be plated up and that sort of thing, and then move through to the dining room, which we saw earlier on. You'll notice it's a bit colder in this room. There's no central heating like there is in the rest of the house. Originally the coal range would be kept going pretty constantly, so it would be quite warm. So this is one of only two of this type in the southern hemisphere, this range. So yeah, it's very unusual. It's got a double oven on either side.
Old-fashioned utensils.
Yeah, they're quite charming, aren't they?
Smallest fire possible, except when roasting in front. Love it.
Old fridge and freezer. Do we have a date?
So this is
fridge.
But that fridge, 1928 I believe, so it's...
And there's the maize.
So the fridge was in use by the family from 28 to 66, so it lasted a very long time. You'd be lucky to buy a brand new fridge today that would
That's a
last
champion
long.
there, Alan. That champion.
The servants.
Yes,
So that's the early 1930s. Yes, so they did have an earlier one, but we don't know quite what's happened to it. They've sort of upgraded at some point.
Jeffrey books, slim little thing.
Yeah, so it's actually an
Do you
original.
remember getting a fridge?
As well.
Wow.
Yeah, gel for you. So those are sort of plates are designed for bones and scraps, etc. So you sort of nestle them to the side of your main dinner plate and kind of move things off on top.
Why haven't we got them today?
They almost look like you put them up and kind of. But no, they're just on the side of the.
So that's a gas cooker.
Yeah, so the city, Dunedin had reticulated gas from the 1860s, so quite an early adopter. So it wouldn't have been bottled gas in those days. No, don't have it now, no. We've gone backwards.
Right, I understand. Yeah.
So this is the scullery, as I mentioned. You'll notice immediately the two stacks.
Yes, it's green leaf, yes, you're right. It's a quite big plant.
Okay, yeah.
My mother used to use it for all that.
Well, I yes, I only know it as being decorative.
Yeah.
Someone ate it
And
once.
so, what is the, oh, that's the weed eater?
Yeah, that's a modern one. There's an original one next to it.
I could hear something, I wasn't sure what.
And this is English, isn't it? They had the 260
Yeah,
tons.
yeah. Yeah, also help them keep kosher as well with
Yes,
the
it
Jewish,
does. Yes, it does.
Jewish faith. So they'll have groceries delivered through that window. That's why the grate's over there.
Oh.
There's a set of steps which lead up to it and a little door, well, a window down, I suppose. So they would ring that and someone would come and open and you'd pass the food through.
These are brass.
Yeah, copper. I think. So the reason behind that is for china and glassware. So if you were washing them and you bang a cup against the side, it doesn't chip as easily. It's sort of a lot softer than yeah, so the cheap stuff goes in those ones, isn't it?
So what's the building out there then?
Which one's that? Oh, that's the garage, the sort of. So you can see the family colour in there. It's the 1921 Fiat.
Do we go out there?
You can have a look at the end of the tour. Yeah. So that was the garage was originally heated as well, which seems quite extravagant. So food would be passed through that little hatchway at the end there. So instead of having to go back through the kitchen, you would just pass it along. So you'll see that room in a moment. This is a cool room as well, before the refrigerator was introduced. So keep meat and that
The
sort of.
old-fashioned.
I lived in a house with one of those, a very small one.
Be quite effective in Dunedin during the winter as well, I think. Probably during the summer too. Really.
Bring the lines upstairs.
So that connects
The patch that this the bottom with lead. And tonight you wouldn't have lead.
No, you wouldn't, would you?
Probably quite annoying for the students getting to run around. It's a silver safe, so things like this, some of the candlesticks which we saw in the dining room. Seem quite good.
So what have we got, all the good china?
Yeah, so this is all the good china. The silverware would be in the safe. Got a heated platter here, so you lift the top off and fill it with
So
hot
do
water.
we actually have the silver here? Or?
Yeah, so most of it's on display in the dining room. So all of that stuff set up there is originally.
Tables drop,
Mm.
so.
That must be the keys for the safe.
A little candle on the side there as well. So there's a filtered drinking water vessel in this room as well. So looks quite handy. Obviously quite a modern touch for that time as well. So this is a linen press for mostly for napkins. So you put sort of half a dozen fabric napkins in there and
Press it.
get them nice and ironed without having
Is
to
it
individually.
No,
No, just purely the
Pressure.
pressure of it.
Wow.
There's a little set of
Well, that
steps
looks like
under
decent.
there
Nice.
to reach the top
Oh, yes.
shelves as well.
And coming from Christchurch, I can't help asking, these won't be stuck down at all, earthquake proof?
No, there's a bit of, they're not really. The problem is sort of most adhesives kind of tend to damage, like blue tack over time will damage porcelain, so we're kind of hoping, fingers crossed. Yeah, yeah, it'd be quite a disaster to have well, it's a disaster anywhere, isn't it?
It's the lovely with cloths, but wiping your hands with loving.
Yes, there's one on the back.
And there's another one here to go.
Yeah, so that originally would go through to the servants' dining room, which is the staff room now. So some rooms have had to be changed around, unfortunately. So this is the last room on the tour. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap up for the day? Looks like it's still sunny out there at least. It's not very warm.
We
But...
must have weaved it as the first part of it, sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Did Joe tell you about some other?
Not really, but I just thought we'll wait till you finish the tour here, it might be just 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, yeah. So I'll take the rest of you back to reception. I'll give you a bit of. Yeah. Did you want to go back through some of the?
Just the first couple, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can do that.
Left?
Yes, just head that way. The reception's the door at the end there with the rope on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Really stays warm out there. We'll just wait here and I'll head back to reception.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, it's incredible big, eh? I was going to pull them outside.
No, you're not going to go. Just have a go down through the garden.
Yes, we came with the garden group.
Great old car in the garage around.
Yeah, I'm going to see it in a minute.